Imagine a world where the most powerful force on the planet isn't, a massive military,
Mm-hmm.
and it isn't mountains of gold or like vast economic wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, the ultimate power is this invisible web of information that connects our minds.
Right.
A web that dictates what we buy, who we fight, and what we actually believe is real. Now, what happens when we take the keys to that invisible web, the very thing that makes us human, and, well, hand them over to a machine?
I mean, it's the ultimate precipice. We are basically standing at the edge of a completely new architecture of reality.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone. It is so great to have you with us today. I'm thrilled you're here. And hey, if you love exploring these like massive paradigm-shifting ideas as much as we do, make sure you hit that subscribe button for the BookSnap channel.
Yeah, definitely subscribe so you don't miss out.
Exactly, so you never miss out on our future deep dives. So today we're taking a sweeping journey through Yuval Noah Harari's exploration of information networks.
Mm-hmm. Stretching all the way from the Stone Age right up to artificial intelligence.
Right. It's this fascinating look at how our unique ability to tell stories literally built human civilization.
Mm.
But it's also, it's a deep warning, I think, about how our newest technological invention might just rewrite the human story entirely,
Yeah.
maybe even without us.
We so often fall into this trap, I think, of looking at human history purely through the lens of, like, physical conquest.
Right, the typical textbook stuff.
Exactly. We study wars, kings, the invention of bronze swords, or the steam engine. But the fundamental premise we are exploring today argues that human history cannot be understood just by looking at tools or weapons.
No, it's so much bigger than that.
It is. Civilizations are built entirely on our ability to organize, exchange, and collectively believe information.
Right, because if you think about it, we didn't dominate the planet just because we were individually smarter or physically stronger than other animals.
Oh, not at all. I mean, if you put a single human and a single chimpanzee on a deserted island, my money is absolutely on the chimpanzee.
Oh, 100%. It's not even a contest.
Mm-hmm. The ape is stronger, faster, and just better adapted to raw survival. Humans dominate for one reason: our unique ability to build massive networks of cooperation based on shared information.
Because a chimp can maybe coordinate with, what, a few dozen troop members?
Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, humans can coordinate with millions of total strangers.
And that really brings us to the core of what we're unpacking today. We are going to explore exactly how these networks evolved, why they actually work, and the very, very dangerous crossroads humanity is facing right now.
Because to understand where AI is taking us, we really have to look back at the very first networks.
Right, we have to go from campfires to filing cabinets.
Exactly. So let's look at the Stone Age. For most of human history, cooperation was entirely reliant on direct personal knowledge. You lived in a small band, maybe up to 150 people maximum. At that scale, you knew everyone intimately.
Like you knew who was a reliable hunter, who was trustworthy.
Right, and who was likely to fall asleep on night watch.
It was essentially a pure reputation economy. The information network was just gossip around a fire.
Precisely. Gossip was the survival tool. But as populations started to grow, like moving from bands of 100 to early settlements of 10,000, that biological limitation became a massive roadblock.
Because our brains just aren't wired for that.
They aren't. The human brain simply cannot hold the interpersonal relationship dynamics of 10,000 people. Personal knowledge completely broke down.
Right.
And without a new system, those larger groups would just splinter or, turn violent.
Okay, let's unpack this, because this feels like the first major pivot in our history. How on earth do you get 10,000 strangers to work together without killing each other?
It's the big question.
And the solution is essentially our unique human ability to invent shared fictions. We invent a concept, we all agree to believe in it, and suddenly, boom, we can cooperate.
It is a remarkable cognitive leap that no other species has made. I mean, think about how profound this is in practice. A soldier is willing to run into battle and die for a piece of colored cloth because they deeply believe in the shared story of the flag or the nation.
Wow, yeah. Or a merchant will extend credit to a total stranger from a different village because they share a story of kinship or a shared god.
Exactly. Civilization didn't begin when we invented the wheel. It began when we started believing the same stories.
But then agriculture happens. We start settling down, building cities, storing grain, and suddenly, around 5,000 years ago, humanity hits its first real information crash.
Yeah, the sheer volume of data simply exceeded the capacity of the human brain. Think about a mayor of an ancient Mesopotamian city. You have tens of thousands of citizens, fluctuating crop yields, tax debts, property lines, military logistics.
It's just too much. The oral tradition, those campfire stories, were totally useless for tracking who paid their barley tax 3 years ago.
Right, the biological hard drive was completely full.
Wait, hold on. We're taught in school that the invention of writing was this, beautiful, liberating milestone for poetry and human expression.
Yeah, I know.
Are you saying that's a myth? That the first alphabet was basically just invented by ancient accountants?
I hate to break the romantic illusion, but yes. Writing was not invented for epic poetry or philosophical treatises. It was essentially an ancient Excel spreadsheet.
That's hilarious.
The earliest clay tablets we have are just ledgers. Literally just 30 sheep received from this person on this date.
It's painfully ironic. We always look back and romanticize writing as this great tool for individual freedom. But initially, writing didn't make humans freer at all. It made administration massively more powerful. It allowed early states to, categorize people.
Exactly. You went from being a complex living human being in a small tribe to an administrative person.
You became a tax record, a property deed, a number on a census.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you start to see that the first states were, at their core, just massive filing systems.
Wow.
Empires weren't built solely on the sharp edge of a sword. They were built on archives. The ability to record, store, and retrieve information gave a state unprecedented control over populations it couldn't physically monitor.
But there's a huge loophole here, isn't there? Because a spreadsheet is useful, sure. I can write down on a clay tablet that you owe the king 5 bags of grain.
Yeah.
But if you simply don't care about my tablet, the system collapses. A ledger doesn't inspire loyalty.
That's the problem.
Right. It doesn't make people obey when the guards aren't looking. To actually unify vast empires of strangers, you have to move beyond just recording data. You have to hack human psychology.
That is the crucial next step. You need enforcement, and physical enforcement is just too expensive.
You can't put a soldier on every single corner.
Exactly. So how do you get massive, sprawling empires to hold together? You build robust systems of trust. Historically, the 3 most powerful trust protocols have been religion, law, and money.
Let's talk about religion first, because it's fascinating how it functioned as an information network.
Oh, absolutely.
It wasn't just about spirituality. It served as the ultimate behavioral enforcement tool.
Exactly. Religion did 3 massive things for these early networks. It explained the terrifying chaos of the natural world, it defined a universal moral code, and most importantly, it legitimized the power structure.
Obedience became cosmic.
Right. If you steal your neighbor's grain, you aren't just risking the anger of a local magistrate who might be 100 miles away. You are risking divine punishment.
And the gods are everywhere. It's like an invisible surveillance system built right into the minds of the citizens.
And alongside that, you have the invention of written law. Think of the Code of Hammurabi or Roman law.
Right.
Before this, justice was basically just the personal whim of whoever happened to be the local chief. Written law turned justice into a unified, predictable text.
It provided a baseline rulebook that stabilized the entire network.
Exactly. But out of all of these, the most successful trust network in human history has to be money.
Oh, definitely. I mean, money is basically just a shared hallucination.
It really is.
I could take a completely useless piece of paper, or a piece of stamped metal, or today, literally just a digital 0 on a glowing screen, and hand it to a total stranger, and it magically turns into a sandwich.
Right.
It only works because everyone in the network collectively agrees to the hallucination.
The value is entirely fictional. It doesn't exist in the metal of the coin. It exists entirely within the network that recognizes it.
Wow.
Written law and money functioned back then exactly like modern internet protocols do today.
It makes me think of TCP/IP on the internet.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Because, a Mac, a PC, and an Android phone are built totally differently by different companies, but they can all view the exact same web page because TCP/IP acts as a universal translator behind the scenes.
That is a brilliant way to look at it. Money and written law were the TCP/IP of the ancient world.
That provided a shared baseline language.
Right. A Roman merchant and a Persian trader might worship different gods, speak completely different languages, and culturally despise each other. But gold was their universal translator. It allowed millions of strangers to interact and trade with absolute trust. These protocols became the operating systems of empires.
So humanity builds these massive, highly functional trust networks. But what happens when the underlying technology of the network suddenly changes? Like, what happens when the people who traditionally controlled that flow of information lose their grip?
Well, for centuries, the flow of information was strictly gated.
Right.
A tiny elite priests, monarchs, a handful of scholars held an absolute monopoly on what was considered truth. If the church said the sun revolved around the earth, that was the truth of the network.
And then the printing press enters the chat.
The printing press violently shattered that elite monopoly. Suddenly, text could be reproduced rapidly and cheaply.
The individual reader was born.
Exactly. This technological shift directly paved the way for the religious Reformation, and it catalyzed modern science by allowing researchers across Europe to, share their findings.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because we tend to look back at the printing press as this universally wonderful, triumphant moment that just sprinkled knowledge everywhere.
Right.
But it actually caused an absolute disaster. It triggered the first great information crisis. Suddenly, the network was flooded with thousands of contradictory books and radical pamphlets.
People were literally reading completely different realities. There was no longer a single authoritative voice of truth.
It was chaos.
Complete chaos. The network fragmented, and Europe was plunged into decades of horrific religious wars simply because the baseline agreement on reality had collapsed.
So how did society fix it? I mean, how do you put the genie back in the bottle once everyone can print whatever they want?
You don't put it back, you invent new institutions to manage the flow.
Oh, okay.
This is when we see the rise of modern universities, scientific journals, and eventually professional journalism. And this is a vital point to understand. These institutions did not claim to have absolute, infallible truth handed down from the heavens. What they offered was a methodology for verification.
A process. Things like peer review, scientific experiments, editorial standards, fact-checking.
Yes. Truth was no longer a dictate. It was the result of a rigorous review process. And that shared methodology created a shared reality.
Which is so important.
It is, because you cannot have a functioning modern democracy without a shared reality. You and I can passionately disagree on tax policy or foreign affairs, but we have to agree on the basic facts of what is happening.
Right. We have to be looking at the same board before we can play the game.
Exactly.
But then the late 20th century rolls around, the internet arrives, and we decided to effectively remove all the barriers those institutions had carefully built over centuries.
Yeah, we did.
Anyone, anywhere can publish globally, instantly, with zero editorial oversight. The internet basically just ruined everything.
Well, no, not exactly. I mean, it accelerated innovation and connectivity tremendously, but it fundamentally broke the filter.
Yeah.
By removing the friction, it also removed the methodology of verification. It brought fake news, algorithmically driven filter bubbles, and a total collapse of traditional authority.
It's wild.
We have essentially been plunged right back into the post-printing press chaos, but this time it's happening at the speed of light.
It's a painful irony, really. We thought giving everyone a microphone would automatically make the world smarter and more connected. We thought the internet would be this ultimate democratic utopia. But without that baseline methodology of verification, it actually just shattered our shared reality into a million little pieces.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it becomes clear why this is so destabilizing. Democracy requires a shared reality before political debate can even occur.
Right.
When the network fragments into a million custom-tailored filter bubbles, the very foundation of cooperative civilization starts to crack.
Which brings us to the most critical part of this deep dive. Because as chaotic as the internet is, it's just a precursor. We are now facing an entirely unprecedented paradigm shift. Artificial intelligence.
Yeah, AI. Every single network we have discussed today, from the clay tablets of Mesopotamia to the printed pamphlets of Europe to the chaotic forums of the internet, every single one still relied on humans at the center.
Right, there was always a person there.
Always. Humans had to process the information. A human had to read the book, interpret the spreadsheet, and make the final decision.
And AI completely shatters that historical precedent. AI is the first truly non-human information network. It doesn't just transmit information from point A to point B like a telegraph.
Yeah.
It actually produces information.
And that is the terrifying and fascinating distinction. The printing press prints. The internet connects. But AI invents.
Invents, wow.
AI processes data and makes complex decisions entirely on its own.
So what does this all mean? I think the immediate fear most people have is like the classic Hollywood Terminator scenario.
Right, the killer robots.
Yeah. We picture red-eyed robots marching down the street, violently overthrowing humanity.
Right.
But the true danger is actually much quieter than that, isn't it? It's our own over-obedience.
Precisely. We aren't going to be conquered in a dramatic war. We're going to voluntarily surrender our decision-making.
It makes me think of GPS navigation. Like, think about how we used to drive.
Oh, yeah.
For GPS, you had to actively know your city. You had a mental map. You had a natural sense of direction. You made choices. Then GPS comes along. At first, it's just a helpful tool, but eventually you just blindly follow the little blue dot. You lose your natural sense of direction because it's so much easier to just do what the screen says. I mean, if the screen tells you to turn left into a lake, a part of your brain actually considers it for a second.
That is a perfect analogy. Now apply that loss of agency to everything else in society. What's fascinating here is, if algorithms can diagnose complex diseases better than human doctors, if they can sift through resumes and pick the most efficient job candidates, if they can direct military logistics and manage entire economies better than human politicians ever could, why would we continue to make those decisions ourselves?
We won't. We
No.
will eagerly outsource our agency because it's more efficient.
Exactly.
We aren't being violently overthrown. We are just becoming helplessly dependent, like passengers in a self-driving car who have forgotten how to steer.
This raises an important question about the shift in cognitive authority. For millennia, authority rested with the gods, then it shifted to kings, and during the Enlightenment, it shifted to the rationality of the human individual.
Right.
Now we are watching that authority shift to the algorithm, and politically, the implications of that are staggering.
Right, because if an AI knows your psychological tendencies better than you do, and it absolutely does, based on, your decade of browsing habits, the heart rate monitor on your smartwatch, your location,
for sure.
it can perfectly curate a media reality tailored specifically to your exact fears and desires.
It creates an information network composed of an audience of one.
Wow, an audience of one.
And if every single citizen is living in a perfectly tailored, isolated, algorithmic reality, it completely destroys the concept of a unified public.
Because there's no shared reality anymore.
Exactly. A modern state requires a people, a collective that shares a common world and can debate within it. AI has the potential to dismantle that shared world entirely.
It's a sobering thought. We spent thousands of years building these incredible networks to cooperate with strangers, and now the ultimate network might isolate us completely.
Yeah.
So where does this actually end? When you look at the trajectory here, there are really only 3 ways this plays out, right?
Yes. Harari lays out 3 potential paths. The first path is optimism.
Okay, we like optimism.
This is the scenario where AI acts as the ultimate tool. It cures stubborn diseases. It helps us solve the climate crisis. It optimizes resource distribution. And somehow, through regulation or design, we manage to reap all those benefits without losing ultimate control over our destiny.
Right. But then there's the much darker second path, authoritarianism. This is where centralized governments harness these incredibly smart, pervasive networks for total surveillance. If an AI can constantly monitor, analyze, and predict the behavior of every single citizen in real time.
Yeah, that ancient administrative state we talked about, the one built on clay tablets, reaches its absolute terrifying peak. There is nowhere to hide.
And the third path,
The third path is perhaps the strangest. It's what we might call post-human.
post-human.
This is the scenario where the complexity of these networks simply outgrows human comprehension. Major decisions about the global economy, about environmental interventions, about war and peace happen entirely outside of human understanding.
So we wouldn't even know what was happening.
No. The algorithms are talking to other algorithms in languages we can't even decode, making massive choices we can't reverse. We become essentially pets to our own infrastructure.
It completely reframes how we look at the world right now. For centuries, the biggest struggle was gathering data. The question was, what do we know?
Right.
But today, information is infinite. The central question of our time is shifting to who decides what we know? Or maybe more accurately, what thing decides what we know?
It's no longer about the data itself. It's about the invisible architecture processing that data, which brings us back to the very definition of humanity.
Exactly. Which leaves us with a truly profound final thought to ponder as we wrap up. We've defined human civilization by our unique ability to create shared fictions. We write the stories, we compose the symphonies, we draft the laws that bind us together. But if we are entering an era where AI can write the best-selling books, compose the award-winning music, and draft the legal codes, does culture even require consciousness anymore?
Right. Or is everything we hold sacred about human culture merely just information processing?
Wow. If non-human systems are producing the vast majority of our knowledge and our cultural artifacts, where does that actually leave human agency? What is our role in the network?
Where does that leave you tomorrow morning when you wake up and open your digital feed? Are you looking at a helpful tool, or are you looking at the new author of your reality?
It's a big question.
It really is. It's something we all need to deeply consider.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this conversation gave you a totally new lens to look through the next time you scroll through your phone.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
And remember, to keep feeding your curiosity and to catch all our future deep dives, be sure to hit subscribe on the BookSnap channel. We love having you in our network. Until next time, keep questioning the invisible web.